Hi everybody, this is Katina with the Clarinet Project and welcome to another live stream of Ask a Clarinet Teacher. So I am here to answer your clarinet questions and help you out and support you as a clarinet player. So let's start. We already have Braden. Hello. Oh, and welcome to your first live stream. It is very nice to see you here. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in there. Eddie's here, hello. Zara's here, hello. So it's so nice. I actually really do look forward to this every week. I'm gonna put my clarinet together now. And why don't I jump in? The party can start now, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I look forward to a clarinet party eventually one day when we finally can have them together again. I feel like we need to have a giant clarinet choir. And that's Clarinet Fest if you've never been there. We were going to have it this year, I think out in Nevada area, but they canceled it for obvious reasons because already coronavirus is challenging, but blowing through clarinets is making it a lot more difficult for us. So the next one's going to be in Texas, so hopefully that one will happen. But it's really, really fun. They're fun to go to. It's fun to meet other clarinet players, and they have a lot of different clarinet choirs, and you can play in them, and they have competitions and different vendors and lots of concerts and master classes. All right, so I'm going to jump in for some questions. It's Jinxie. It's Jaxie. Can I be in the clarinet choir? Absolutely. I feel like we need all the clarinetists and all the biggest clarinet choir ever. When I was at the Clarinet Fest in Knoxville, we broke the Guinness Book of World Records for the biggest clarinet choir. So I'm looking forward to the next Clarinet Fest because I think there'll be enough people there that we really can beat that world record of the most clarinetists in a clarinet choir. And Eddie, I've only gotten to play in one choir. They are fun, and they're fun to put together. It's possible to put together a clarinet choir in your community, especially now with social media. And there are a lot of clarinet groups on Facebook where you can network with people on Facebook. There's a website, I was about to say a listserv, but there's a website called the woodwindboard.org, and they have a lot of clarinetists in there where you can meet clarinet players in your area and you can start a clarinet choir. For those of us that aren't in school anymore, having a clarinet choir is harder to get to because in school you have a ready-made package of clarinet players there through band. So there are a lot of adult clarinet choirs out there also for any of you that are in the above 18 range watching this live stream. But they're there and you can find them. I would just Google clarinet choir in your zip code or go into Facebook and look for some of the Facebook groups. All right. What age do you have to be? It depends on which clarinet choir you're talking about. It's Jaxie. If you're talking about one of the clarinet choirs at Clarinet Fest, they have, I think, 3 or 4 different clarinet choirs there. So they have one for students. You can be any age. I know we do a big clarinet Christmas celebration up here in Northern Virginia, and the ages start at 8 and they go to 88. It's just the full range of clarinet players. But that's a one-day event. So there's lots of different versions of clarinet choirs. There's ones that meet in the evenings once a week, and then you would check your community clarinet choir there to see if you are the right age. If you feel like you should be in it and they have an age limitation on it, ask them, write them an email and say, listen, I really want to be in your clarinet choir, but you don't let people in it of a certain age. What can I do to get there? And sometimes they'll make exceptions, especially if you're a good player. Okay, Eddie, I finally gotten, okay, yeah, only one choir for you. Isaac says, hello. I have a regular B flat and a brass B flat clarinet. And that is something I would want to see. Definitely, if you're on social media like Instagram or Twitter, take a picture of that brass clarinet and send it to me or tag me in it. I really want to see that. Zara, oh, that sounds fun. It is fun. And Eddie, oh, you're writing a piece for a huge clarinet choir, so I'll need lots of people. Yes, Eddie, that is great. I can't wait to hear it. And there are people putting together virtual clarinet choirs now too with those different video boxes. And they're really fun to do. They're just hard to mix. And if you have the capabilities of explaining how metronomes work is a big part of it because you need a click track to do it, and you're willing to spend the time mixing it, those are great fun too. And then you can get clarinet players from all over the world. Okay. All right, Addison, hi teacher, nice to meet you. Arranging, not writing. Arranging too. Arranging, there's so many great pieces out there that I sound really, really good with clarinet choir, so I'm excited to hear what you're doing, Eddie. Keep me informed. Do they allow brass B-flat clarinets? I don't know, but I'm desperate to see this brass B-flat clarinet. Are you sure, absolutely sure it's not a soprano saxophone? Because my parents used to call the soprano saxophone the brass B-flat clarinet for a long time. I'm sure you know though, I had a good friend who had one of those metal clarinets, and it was hilarious, and it was questionable sound on that clarinet, but it was really fun to see it and play it. I don't know. If you're talking about Clarinet Fest, I think they welcome all clarinet players. Taylor says, hi, Lisa, Clarinet Christmas. It is fun. The woman that started it was feeling like Tuba Christmas was getting a little bit too much airtime, so she wanted to have a Clarinet Christmas. And she pulled it off, and it was really, really fun. This would be the 4th year or 5th year, and I think it's going to be virtual this year, which will be an opportunity for clarinet players from all over the world to play in that one too. So I'll keep you updated about that. Eddie, I think you have a soprano sax, and Eddie beat me to it. It's possible that's a soprano sax. No, it's really a brass clarinet. It's vintage, and I've seen the metal ones, and I haven't seen a brass one, but I really, really want to see it. And then Scott's here. How do you do the higher notes? And Eddie, lots of hot air with Tuba Christmas. I would definitely agree with that one. All right, so let's jump in and talk about some of these high notes. If you can, Scott, can you please talk me through what a high note is to you? So if we are talking altissimo range, we get to high C, and then you have 1, 2, or 2, 3, 1, 2, and now you've lifted up your index finger in the top. That's the altissimo range. A lot of us call that the high range. But some people will call playing over the break the high range. So you're playing with the register key down up to the C, or getting to this G right here is high range. So just let me know, which one do you want? Do you want starting on high C sharp here, starting on high C back there, starting on G, or the middle C? So just let me know which one that you're looking for. All right. But that's a question I get a lot, and really it's something we have to differentiate on the different ranges within the clarinet, especially if we're talking about bass clarinet, because the ranges there, when people say I want to play high C on that one, I always assume this is high C in the back, like Scott just clarified, but a lot of times people just mean this C, because it is a high C for them. And it also depends a lot on what district you're in and what your school band is doing. Okay, so Scott, you want to get to the high C in the back. So we're going to start here. And a lot of times I'll start on G, but we might as well piggyback on getting the bass clarinets in here as well. So let's start here on an F. So if you can play the F here, my suggestion is to slur up to this C right there. You need to have good support here in your abs, so you're pushing out with your abs, and then have a high tongue position like you're saying E in the back of your mouth. Everybody's mouth is different, and I do make adjustments depending on the reed I'm playing, depending on my mouthpiece, depending on how I feel that day. Sometimes I don't have as much air power as I would like to have, so I can make adjustments with my tongue position and the shape of my oral cavity, and here we talk about this a lot. It's called voicing. So try experimenting with different places for your tongue to get those notes to speak. Once you can get the F up to the C working, start on the G. And then start on the A. Now, one of the things that also helps is just re-articulating that high C, because that's one of the things we need to get to eventually, right? So it'll sound like this starting on the A. Then you start on the B. And then ideally keeping that good embouchure right here firm in the corners. Don't pull them back real far, and give yourself a little bit of squishiness in the middle, and then you just play the C. Like that. And that's how I work up there. So some days work great. Some days you'll be able to get up there really, really nicely. Keep practicing. I do a whole bunch of repetitions that day. But if you're on a day where it's not working really well for you, just put it away. It's okay. You don't have to worry about it. Just save it for the next day and practice something else. So don't beat yourself up over it if you're not having a good day with it. And I do this with a lot of my practicing. Sometimes I'm just not in the right headspace, and it makes much better practicing to let it go that day and work on something else than practice poorly, because every time we practice poorly, we are reinforcing bad habits. Okay, so let's get to some of these other questions. All right, so Braden, I have a question, but it's about my bass clarinet. All right, here we go. When I put cork grease on the bell, it will slowly fall off. I use an X-strap. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, you don't need to put a lot of cork grease on. Cork grease is a tool just to put your clarinet together. And if you're finding that you're putting too much cork grease on and parts of your clarinet are falling off, it's too much cork grease. So I would take a paper towel and I would rub off the excess cork grease. One of the things I do want you to double check though, especially now that we're going in the upper hemisphere, the northern hemisphere where I am, when it's getting colder, corks tend to contract so they don't hold the clarinet together as well. And it's possible you don't have enough cork there, or your cork has contracted enough, and that's why your bell is falling off. So that's another reason. So too much cork grease is one of them, but if you wipe off that excess cork grease and your bell is still slipping off, then it could be just your cork needs to be replaced with a thicker cork, and a repair person can do that. Now, in a pinch, if you can't get to a repair person, you do have a couple of options. You can take plumber's tape and wrap it around here so that you can put your bell on and it'll hold on more firmly. I use floral tape, which is what florists use when they wrap bouquets of flowers. So I have white, you can also use green. And in a pinch, I've actually used the floral tape on my teeth if I've been playing and my bottom lip is irritated. So I carry floral tape for a lot of reasons. And one of them is you can put some here on the bottom of or on your cork just to get you through until you can get to a repair person. If you don't have any of that, you can rip a piece of paper into a strip and just put it there, and that you can put on and it'll hold your bell on for you. It works with the other joints of the clarinet as well. I don't use it so much on my bell. For me, it bothers me when my barrel is wobbly. So sometimes in the past I've had wobbly barrels, and I will use a little bit of paper there if I need to. I really need to tell people this though, since we've brought up the slippery cork grease situation. Be very careful when you put cork grease on your middle joints. Also, Braden, you know what this means. You know how it feels when your bell slips off, especially on a bass, and it hits the ground and it just dents. It's just the saddest. So you really don't want that to happen, and it can break your bell. I've had friends where their bell has come off that way and it has shattered their bell or cracked their bell. So that's definitely something that can happen. Be very careful on this middle joint. This cork for me is one of the ones that will change a lot. Well, and this cork as well, change a lot with the humidity level and the temperature outside. And I have had many students through the day that have put too much cork grease on here and this bottom joint slips off. And now you have added weight to your bell hitting the ground, and you can also damage the keys on the lower joint. So be very careful when you put the cork grease on. Thank you so much for asking that question. That was a really good question. Okay, the brand is, we're talking about that brass clarinet. The brand is King Cleveland Brass and Metal. It's metal with plated brass, and it's kind of shiny copper. I really want to see a picture of that. And in my fantasy dream of this brass clarinet that Jaxie keeps talking about, it has beautiful engravings and things like that, which would be so pretty. All right, Scott, because I have done half of your tutorials, but I want to do a high note, but I can't. Okay, so Scott, just keep working. I think I have a tutorial on how to play higher, but it's really just starting right here. Now, if the F doesn't work, start on the E. And if that one doesn't work, start on the D. And so just keep working your way up there. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but once you get there, it's like riding a bike, and you will be able to keep playing those high notes. Okay. It was your granddad's. Oh, I love it. You have to keep that in your family. Sometimes I troll around on Craigslist to see if people are selling clarinets, and I met this woman who was selling her mother's clarinet, and she was in her 50s, and she was sad to be selling it because her children never played it. and she had some really young grandchildren, and she was selling it because she was downsizing. And I said, listen, if this clarinet is making you feel sad, if you feel emotional about letting this go, don't let it go. Keep it. Keep it as part of your family. Really, seriously, the case, what, is this big? Just stick it under your bed or put it at the top of your closet. Maybe one of your grandkids will play the clarinet, or maybe you will play the clarinet again, and you will go to that adult clarinet choir that I'm talking about, and your grandkids will see you playing the clarinet, and that's exciting and fun for them. So I remember just, and it was a good clarinet. It would have been a good buy if I had gotten it, but she was so sad about it. So definitely, it's Jaxie, keep it in the family, because that is such a special thing to have. And if you ever get to Antiques Roadshow, let me know what they say about it. I always love those stories. Okay. And plus it's your granddad, so it has a lot of meaning to you. Eddie, you don't need cork grease on your bell. Yeah, so yeah, Eddie beat me to it. Wipe it off. Yeah, and I agree with Eddie. I only use cork grease when it's difficult to put my clarinet together. Okay, how do you play lower than the lowest note? Isaac, you asked me a great question. So, and I'm looking around my room and I don't have one. And bizarrely, it would have been possible for me to have what I was looking for, because I have cats that like to murder toilet paper and paper towels. So we can't play lower than our lowest note with the clarinet as it is. So our lowest note is this low E. And it pushes down this pad right here to cover this hole, and then we're done. If you have a paper towel tube, you can stick that in your bell and you can get a very sharp half step lower, which is really fun to do. So you have to modify your clarinet to play lower. Unlike playing the altissimo notes where we can just keep going indefinitely, we do have a fixed end of our range. I have seen people though modify their clarinets, and the easy answer would be, if you want to keep going lower, play the bass clarinet or the alto clarinet. Even the A clarinet gets you one half step lower. And then if that's not low enough for you, go to the contralto. And if that's not low enough for you, go to the contrabass. So that's how you get lower. You actually have to modify the instrument or play a different clarinet entirely. Okay. All right. We have a question for marching bands. Okay. And why don't I notice a difference between the clarinet with a bell on or off? It's Jaxie. Again, because you're playing the wrong note. So here's low E. I'm going to take my bell off. So you hear that half step difference? That's what that low, you really hear it with that low E the best. So we need our bell to just give us a little bit more flair to our sound and give core to our sound, and it's how the whole instrument is engineered. But if you don't have it on the low E, it's going to be a half step off. Okay. Oh, it has engravings on the bell. I bet it's so pretty. Okay. Is your low E pad sticky? Wait, are you talking to me, Eddie, or are you talking to somebody else that doesn't hear the difference? And you're trying to play Palpatine's theme. Oh, that's a good one. Okay, if the pads come off, how do you fix that? Wow, Scott, that's a big question. So normally when the pads come off, I bump people over to a repair person so that they can seat the pads properly. This is one of the reasons why we have repair people, because they know how to do this. They study this. One of the things I love about clarinet repair people is that it's an apprentice learning situation. So you can go to school kind of, but it's not the same as working alongside somebody that has years of experience and you are apprenticed in the trade. So it's one of the few places left where you get to apprentice. And so I do like supporting that that industry. And there's only so many things I can work on in my life, and clarinet repair is not one of them. So you need to make sure that these pads are seated properly so you don't have any leaks in there. And that's what your clarinet repair technician can do. If it's an emergency and it's your concert, you can actually take a lighter, if you have one handy, and you can heat up the key, and then it will loosen up that glue a little bit, and you can put that pad back in there. It's not going to seal great. It's not going to be fantastic. And you could actually tarnish or do some damage to your key. So this is only an emergency situation, and I do not recommend it. I definitely recommend talking to a repair tech for that. But I have been in that emergency situation. I had one of these pads come off up here, and my clarinet teacher did that at the time. And it was very nerve-wracking for me. So that you can fix it if you need to, but it's not going to be as good as taking it to professional. All right, next question. My pad, is my pad sticky? Yes, it is. That is definitely a sticky pad. So this would be one where I would pull out some cigarette paper and I would put that in there, or sometimes I use a dollar bill to sort of get that stickiness out of there as well. Okay. Talk about cleaning the pads. I don't know anything about cleaning pads. I am one of these people that I will take this over to my repair person and I'll just be like, here, can you make this sound better? Or I'll say, I've got a sticky pad down here, can you fix that? Or it's clicking over here and that's really bothering me. Or I'm really sharp and I can't seem to fix that. Is there anything you could do about it? So I definitely like to go to repair people and ask specific questions for them to help me with. Okay, my marching band question is, I can't hear the saxes or the flutes or the clarinet on the field or in the stands. Is there something woodwinds can do to be heard? I always hear the brass. Oh, yeah, I'm really sorry. Especially clarinet, we're the lowest on the list that is heard on the field in marching band. The only ones I think that's worse, and God bless these bands that do it, is a marching oboe, which really blows my mind. It's very, very hard to hear the clarinet players. Our instrument is not designed for projection the way a brass instrument is. I wish, if my husband was nearby, I would pull him in here. He's a professional trumpet player and he can answer this question a little bit better. But we are not designed the same way, so our sound does not project as well. Think about a trumpet or a flugelhorn or sousaphone, the way the sound is really concentrated coming out of that bell. And for us, it's coming out in all these tone hole areas as well. So it's not coming out of our bell, it's coming out of the whole instrument. Our instrument's made of plastic on a marching band field. Please don't take your wooden instrument on a marching band field. Usually the flutes play louder than us, especially if you have piccolos. When I marched in marching band, we never marched with flutes. It was always piccolos because their sound can carry more. Flutes don't carry the same way. And then saxophone is surprising that you can't hear them, because saxophones do actually carry, their sound carries really, really well. And I think the brass has a lot to do with that. So saxophones can really have a lot more power. The best I can offer you is numbers. Maybe have more clarinet players and encourage them to play louder. Maybe have the Leger reeds or a composite reed. I don't use cane. I don't suggest cane for marching band. Also because it's so variable, it chips so easily, it's so dependent on the weather. So cane reeds can really not work that great in marching band. So I do suggest the composite or the plastic reeds. They also tend to project a lot better. So that can help. Just encourage your section to play louder. And that's really all I've got for you. You can't really compare the woodwinds to the brass in marching band in particular, because it's just, we're not designed the same way. Sorry. You could actually do some arranging with how you put people on the field. If you put the poor woodwinds in the front with the brass behind them, it'll hurt them. It'll hurt their ears, but you should be able to get a little bit more of that sound. Plastic clarinets also will help. Okay, I'm going to wrap up with one more question before I have to go. Okay. So Scott says, because on the register key, the pad didn't come up with the key. Oh yeah, sometimes that happens. So maybe you can just, heat that up if you can't get to a repair person to see if that glue will work for you. I mean, saxes are made of brass, so obviously they're really a lot louder than the clarinet flute, but not as loud as the trumpet. Yeah, it's just the way we're designed. All right, let's see. Oh, Jeremy, your mom played the flute. That's awesome. And Shark plays the clarinet. And what clarinet reeds do you recommend? And I'll wrap up with that one. Actually, Scott, I've answered a bunch of your questions, so I'll go to Mr. Skyhawk and try and do that one. But reeds, I play into Dario reeds. I love them. They're my favorites. All right, Mr. Skyhawk, I just started learning the clarinet, and when I play some songs, my embouchure loosens, and I cannot retighten it without taking a 10-second break. What can I do to fix it? All right, long tones. And my favorite way to help strengthen the embouchure is to start with a little tiny long tone warm up. So I'll put a timer on for how long I can play long held notes before my embouchure quivers or loosens up and the air leaks out, and then I stop, and I hit that timer again, and I see how long it took me before I weakened. And that is my number. And so each day I will try and go a little bit more than that number. So let's say I made it to 5 minutes and take a break from embouchure work for that day. And then the next day I'll try and get to 6 minutes. Some days are great. I can make it to 7 minutes when I do my warm-ups, and then I will go there and maybe stop. I don't want to push too far. But if I have a bad day, I just call it and I don't try and push it. These are muscles. You don't want to damage them. So really, you might have to incrementally build your good embouchure. Working without the clarinet to keep a good embouchure is also good practice. So when I brush my teeth, sometimes I'll just double check my embouchure that way. And then another one to do, since you'll be playing and you want to practice things, is take the clarinet off your face. So those 10 seconds to take a little break is good. If you ever see the brass players, they'll do the kind of thing to loosen their embouchures. I'll do the fish face to loosen my embouchure there. But really, it's building that strength in there, and that's how you do it with long tones. So we have to earn our embouchures. All right, everybody, I have to go. I have a clarinet lesson to get to. Thank you for coming. And if you have questions and I missed you, you can put them in the comments, and I'll try and get to them, or maybe get here earlier next time and try and scooch in past some of these people that were here first. And I'm sorry I can't answer everybody's question, but I am grateful to all of you, and thank you for coming.